This 28-year-old woman is on her way to meet a guy who she will recognize instantly, though she doesn't really know him. They used to be total strangers.
You have my brother's face.
In March of 2012, an incredible surgery was performed on 37-year-old Richard Norris. Norris had spent the last 15 years essentially living in hiding as a recluse due to the fact that his face shocked and disturbed the public. Norris had been involved in a pew-pew accident in 1997 that took away his upper and lower jaw, lips, and nose. All hope seemed to be lost for him, until the family of 21-year-old Joshua Aversano was found. Joshua had been unalived in a tragic car accident, and his family had been approached by doctors working with Richard Norris to ask if they would be willing to donate their son's face to Norris, being that both of the men's faces originally somewhat resembled each other, and the family agreed. So in 2015, the sister of Joshua came face to face, finally, with the man who now wears her brother's face. And she reached up and kind of brushed his forehead and could only say, "Wow." Seconds later, she added, "This is the face that I grew up with."
His nose, his lips, his teeth, his jawbone, his hair, everything belonged to my brother.
How would you feel if you met someone who now had one of your relatives' faces? And what would you even say to them?
Everything was a dream. Yuji is literally a homeless man. JJK chapter 263 spoilers. So I've seen this on Twitter. JJK final chapter. I'm assuming they're referring to the final page of this chapter, not actually the final chapter, because next chapter is not the last one. Usually it's actually just a homeless person. Bro is literally like, was it just a dream? Bro has a homeless need money for food please sign, asking people for spare change, go find a job. Bro's literally getting spit on. This is actually really sad, bro. People were on Deku's neck because bro went from gear shift to night shift working out as a cashier at a restaurant. Bro, this is leagues and miles better than what Yuji is. At least Deku got a job making his own bag. Like, yeah, he went from the greatest hero to just being an average person. But Yuji is literally, bro, he is, I don't even know what to say honestly at this point. Let's just say Deku had a much better than Yuji now. Bro, I did not think he would go out this sad. That's actually insane.
Whatever happened to Grace VanderWaal? Part 2. Part 1's already up on my page. So after her blow up on America's Got Talent, it seemed like the career of Grace VanderWaal was going to go to the moon. And with early success, it seemed like nothing could stop this. But as she grew up, she began to change. And this change took place in both her music and her physical appearance. And as more time went on, her comments became flooded with people saying they missed the old her. But the thing is, she never really changed who she was, she just grew up. She was only 12 years old when she first began making music, so naturally she's going to be different. When asked about her time when she was first blowing up, she said she didn't really even remember it.
Don't remember anything from like when I was 13, 12. I have zero memory of it. Really?
And she's actually still making music, so nothing really happened, she just grew up and changed her style. Guys, thanks for watching. As always, don't forget to like and follow. And you can actually grab this mic in the shop if you want.
One of the most diabolical things that Hannibal Lecter ever did was stimulate an unconscious man's prostate with a cattle prod so he could milk him in order to give the seed to the man's sister so she could have a baby with it. The man's name was Mason, and he totally deserved it. Let me explain. He's the sole heir to a very wealthy meatpacking company. But he is also extremely cruel, both to his only living sister, Margot, and to children. It's even implied in the novels that he essays these children. His sister Margot is tired of living underneath his foot, and she decides to take matters into her own hands. She decides to have a baby. That way, hopefully she has a boy, so the boy can be the heir to the family fortune and she won't have to suffer under her brother anymore. Mason finds out and purposefully wrecks Margot's car, kidnaps her, performs a medical abortion, and then rips out her uterus so she can never have kids again. The only problem in Mason's plan is that her and her brother share the same psychiatrist, Hannibal Lecter. I'm skipping over an entire trip to Europe here, but basically what happens, Hannibal agrees to milk Mason for Margot. Margot then takes the seed and uses it to impregnate her girlfriend so the girlfriend can carry the baby. But I know what you're thinking, who was the first baby? Who did the first baby belong to? It belonged to Hannibal Lecter's boyfriend.
This Florida man's face became more and more of a nightmare each time his mugshot was taken over the course of 8 years. Florida man Robert Hardister went viral recently for all 9 of his mugshots that showcase his face getting more and more disturbing and covered in awful face tattoos. While each charge associated to each of these mugshots ranges anywhere from theft to fraud, to sleeping in stolen cars, to even possession and distribution of substances. But after these mugshots recently went viral, a brand new one, a 10th mugshot, has surfaced, and as you could assume, it is even worse than the previous one, and it seems the next step is nothing short of going total blackout of the face. Some people in the comments have expressed that this poor guy is nothing more than a victim of the broken system, and that's what has happened to him. Others, such as a few ladies, have expressed that, guiltily enough, he is extremely hot. What do you think?
This twisted love triangle turned deadly, but wait until you hear the unexpected way police cracked the case. Marinda Boob was adopted from a young age. Her adoptive parents wanted to give her the life that she would never have had. When she grew up, it was clear that she was a really kind, caring person, and she loved looking after people, especially children. She met Sam Boob in 2002. They seemed to be really suited, they both went to church, they both had good values. They married in 2003 after only knowing each other for a year. Time would tell that Sam never knew Marinda at all. They had 3 children together, but things weren't as perfect as they seemed. They started struggling with money issues, partly due to Marinda's inability to save money. Then in August 2009, Marinda met a man in a local shop. He was called Ron. Ron charmed her and she gave Ron her number, and the pair started texting. They ended up meeting up, and the events that would follow proved to be deadly. On the 23rd of August that year, just after 10 a.m, a panicked call came into police. The caller stated, "I need your help, someone's been shot, I think he's dead." The dispatcher could hear her shouting, "I love you, baby," to the victim. She confirmed to the operator her name was Marinda. Emergency services raced to the scene and found Sam face down, shot dead. Marinda was on the driveway and appeared to be devastated. Sam had been shot with a shotgun twice. Now, Marinda was interviewed and she stated that Sam had been getting ready for church, went outside, and she went out to see where he was. She found him face down and she said she did CPR. Now, police started asking round neighbours, people that knew the couple, to see if anything was off. They wondered if Sam potentially had any enemies, but it turned out that he was really well liked. Now, neighbours reported not hearing anything odd on the day apart from the gunshots. They did, however, tell investigators that they would often see a random man turning up at Marinda's house when Sam was out at work. Investigators also noted that Marinda didn't seem to have any blood on her at all at the crime scene, which was strange considering she said that she attempted CPR, and Sam was absolutely covered in blood. Relatives also noticed that Marinda seemed to be almost like fake crying whenever they were around. Marinda's brother-in-law, Ben, was actually very suspicious of her, and he agreed to work with police to try and catch her out. He agreed to wear a wire and to record their conversations. He went round to hers and he started talking to her and trying to get her to open up to him. He started sympathizing and saying, you know, marriages all have troubles, did you have any problems? She ended up confessing to texting Ron and claimed he was obsessed with her. She said she was worried that it might have been Ron that had killed her husband. Now, Ben gave all of this information to police and they quickly interviewed Ron. They also searched his house but couldn't actually find any real evidence other than what was on his phone, which were the texts between the pair. By looking at the texts, they could see this was clearly a lot more mutual than Marinda had made it out to be. Then police interviewed Ron's friend, Kermit Butts. He confirmed that the pair had been having a physical affair. Marinda had told Ron that her husband was abusive to her. Now, this was untrue, but Ron didn't know that. So did Ron kill Sam in an attempt to potentially protect her? Then police found strange texts from the morning of the murder between Ron and Marinda, talking about whether they were sure that she wanted her pond doing. He kept saying, "Do you want your pond done? Are you sure?" When she said yes, the conversation quickly turned to where Sam was. It was clearly a code for killing Sam. Kermit admitted to police that he'd been forced by Ron to drive him to and from the murder. It eventually transpired that Marinda's motive was mostly financial. It also turned out that she had been having an affair with another man called Wes Decker. She'd also propositioned him too and asked him to kill her husband. Marinda was found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, and Ron was found guilty of murder. They were given life in prison without the possibility of parole.
One of the most shocking Korean cases to date, the Burning Sun case. In 2016, in South Korea, a woman walks into the police station to report that her ex-boyfriend had taken explicit photos of her without her consent. The ex-boyfriend then gets called into the police station. His phone was conveniently broken. But the police, they're thinking, we're gonna have the man send his phone in to a data forensics company and have an IT specialist look at it to see if they can recover any data. So an IT specialist takes it in. We will refer to him as Park. Park gets assigned this man's phone, and he's trying to work on recovering any and all the data from the device. He recovers almost everything. Over 200,000 text messages, videos, photos. I mean, anything that could be recovered, he's recovered it. And what he saw were images of women unconscious, naked, videos of unconscious women being essayed, women being and abused. In group chats, there were prices under these women, the cost of how much it would be to essay them yourself. The phone belonged to a famous Korean idol by the name of Chung Chun-young, or JJY. Another idol from FT Island named Choi Jung-hoon, Lee Jung-hyun, lead vocalist and guitarist of CN Blue, and the biggest name of all was Lee Seung-lee from the global group Big Bang. And these messages, they revealed a complex trafficking ring operated by some of the biggest names in the Korean entertainment industry. In another group chat, the idols joke about how 5 of them gang essayed a woman the night before a fan sign event. Even high-up police commissioners were exposed to be VIP clients of this trafficking ring. Park had just uncovered a trafficking ring run by celebrities, police officials, and there was nobody that could help him. There was nobody that could save the victims because everyone at the top was dirty. But Park would secretly make a copy of every single text message. And 3 years later, it would be released onto the internet, exposing.
Last week, this video went viral showing a group of teens dumping buckets of trash straight into the ocean. And yesterday, those teenagers finally turned themselves in. They've been identified as 15-year-old Charles R. and 16-year-old Michael K. The group was attending the annual Boca Bash event, where hundreds of people gather on their boats to party. A content creator called Wavy Boats starts filming this specific boat because it was speeding away from the event despite the huge swells, and accidentally captures them committing a crime. They captured the teens dumping 2 full trash cans filled with bottles, cans, and plastic cups straight into the ocean. And when they noticed the drone filming them, they started celebrating. Both teens have been charged with 1 count of causing pollution, a 3rd-degree felony. They face a maximum of 5 years in prison and a $50,000 fine if convicted. The chairman of Florida's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission wants the teens to do 500 hours of community service. I think prison time is a little overkill, but if they spend hundreds of hours picking up trash on the beach, they'll probably learn something.
This woman's disappearance is sure to have you on the edge of your seat. This is Alice Russell, who's been missing in the mountains of Australia for days. As if fending against the natural elements wouldn't be hard enough, these are the same woods that decades earlier claimed the lives of multiple women at the hands of the notorious, still-at-large serial killer Kovac. One of the lead detectives on this case, Aaron Falk's own mother, disappeared in these woods. Is Falk really the best person to be on this case given his trauma? Could Kovac really be striking again decades later? Or is this a copycat? It's literally a race against the clock for Alice to survive in this forest. And that clock may have less time than anyone thinks if Kovac really still is out there. Now the good news is that there is answers to this case, which you can find out for yourself on May 10th when The Force of Nature The Dry 2 hits theaters. While it's not true crime, it's truly thrilling with twists that you'll never see coming. As someone who loves to put clues together, I really enjoyed it and I think you will too.
Take a closer look at this photo. Although at first glance this looks like a lovely family photograph, if you look closer it's just about the most disturbing photo that you could see. It was New Year's Day 2011 in Caloocan in the Philippines. Local politician Reynaldo Dagsa was 35. He was a member of the Peacekeeping Action Team and therefore had inadvertently made enemies with people involved in organised crime. He was gathered together with his family outside of his house. He was just about to take a photo of them all together. That's when his assassin popped round the corner. Captured in the image is a man aiming a weapon at Reynaldo. He had unknowingly taken a photo of his killer assassinating him. Milliseconds later, Reynaldo was shot dead. Now, the photo that he had taken, obviously understandably, was heartbreaking, but it was like gold dust to the investigators. They now had a clear photograph of the killer. They were able to identify the gunman as a convicted robber from the area who was out on parole. His name was Arnel Buenflor. It's believed that he took a disliking to Reynaldo due to the fact that he'd helped to get him arrested. Following the assassination, he was arrested once more. His accomplices were also arrested shortly after.
Sean Penn once dangled a paparazzi by the ankles off of a 9th floor balcony, and these are 4 other times that celebrities attacked the paparazzi. In the case of Sean Penn, he was filming in Macau in 1986, and in his hotel room, he found a photographer trying to get a picture of him and his new wife, Madonna. Because of this, he grabbed the guy, dangled him off of a 9th floor balcony, and he was actually arrested, but he was able to escape prison because they left the door ajar. Second, you've got Hugh Grant, who in 2007 was arrested for kicking a photographer in the balls and saying he hoped his kids died of cancer. And then, in typical British fashion, he threw a family-sized tin of baked beans at him. The Daily Star reported that the photographer was left bruised, battered, and covered in baked beans. Third, we've got Jude Law, who slapped a female photographer in the face. In 2009, outside a restaurant in London, Jude Law hit a female photographer in the back of the head and then slapped her in the face. Jude Law says it was an accident and he was just confused by all the flashing lights. Fourth, we've got Kanye West, who had a lot of issues with the paparazzi, but the most insane took place July 2013 at LA Airport. The photographer was waiting outside of the airport trying to, get a picture of Kanye. So Kanye attacked him and tried to steal his camera equipment and managed to wrestle the camera out of his hands. He was charged with misdemeanor battery and grand theft. Must have been a rough flight. And finally, probably the most well-deserved paparazzi clapback ever. Before I get to it, if you do like this content, please just drop the channel a follow. It really helps me keep making the videos. But finally, it's Anita Ekberg and her bow and arrow. So Anita Ekberg, the female lead of La Dolce Vita, was out at a fancy restaurant club one night and was constantly harassed by the paparazzi. They went back home to her villa, but the paparazzi followed them. She grabbed her bow and arrow and started firing at the paparazzi. Turns out, she's a pretty good shot. She hit one of them in the forearm and actually hit another one of them twice in the back.
This man followed a teen and her grandmother who were on a trail, and then he took their lives. In 2021, 17-year-old Hera and her grandmother, 78-year-old Zanetta, were found deceased in their home in Largo, Florida. Earlier that day, Hera and her grandmother went on a walk on the Pinellas Trail not too far from their house. On their way home, 19-year-old Sage Curry followed them to their house. He waited for the sun to go down before entering their home through the bedroom window. Sage then went into the kitchen and looked for the sharpest knife he could find and used that to attack the grandmother as she slept. Hera ran into the room after hearing her grandmother scream, and she was also stabbed to death. What's insane is that there was no relationship between the victims and Sage. He literally did this for absolutely no reason. His family said that his mental health declined after his 18th birthday and he became delusional, so much that he couldn't tell fiction from reality and believed that TV shows he watched were real. While he sat in jail, he got this moon tattooed on his forehead, which referenced a TV show character who had DID. Sage also got one of the victims' names tattooed on his ankle. In court, he really tried to use the insanity defense, but that was rejected. Sage was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.